What's up, Shred Sexies? Welcome back. Death to the Fingers. Got a really interesting question about how to know if you're starting to quit the guitar kind of thing. Now listen. If you're asking questions like that, that's probably a pretty good indicator that you're like near the end. And this video is not going to be like you would think it would be. It's going to be more like, listen, one of my biggest regrets in life is wasting time on stuff that I wasn't really going to pursue. Did I enjoy it? Did I have fun doing it? Yes, I did. I really did. I used to be really into sports, basketball, and all kinds of stuff, and I had a lot of fun. But guess what? Although I'm okay as an athlete, I'm much better as a musician. But I spent a lot of time in the early years dicking around with sports when I should have been playing music, and I would have had a lot more headway ultimately, because you just learn things so much faster when you're younger because your brain is so elastic, if you will. So, like that kind of catches up with you, and then multiply that by about, a whole bunch of different things. And it's sometimes it's expected and other times it's unexpected. If you get a divorce, it's kind of like coming out of the blue type deal. But when you kind of, add all those up, you start to realize that you like pissed away a good 10, 15 years of your life on like totally inconsequential stuff that doesn't even matter anymore. And it's not a reflection of you. It's just circumstances in the real world change. And sometimes you just get left in the dust. And all you can do is, well, you can do two things, really. You can hold on and be like, basically hurting yourself, right? You're holding on to something that's just, you can't hold on to. It's like trying to grab water. It doesn't work. Or you just kind of put it down and you be like, listen, I lost that one. You know what I mean? And then try to invest into something else that's going to actually attain the results that you're looking for, which is a sense of accomplishment towards some sort of skill, whatever that is. Knitting, cooking, you know what I mean? Or maybe you're into carpentry or furniture stuff. There's a whole leather work. There's so many. Right? It's not, music is just another, facet on this multi-jeweled sort of thing we call hobbies, which is just basically you focusing in on some sort of activity, and then you just become so engrossed by it that it just starts to become your life. That's your muse. That's your love. The first and foremost, let's all admit it, man. Anybody that's been in a relationship before, that's been a musician who got dumped, knows that music is your first and best friend, whether you're listening to it or you're playing it yourself. It's a way to sort of exercise those demons, but that's just it. Instead of worrying about whether you quit, if you're not playing daily, or every other day, if you're not coming up with creative practice exercises that maximize your forward potential and inertia to reaching your goals set yearly and preferably like bi-yearly. So you're like, okay, I'm going to learn this for the first 6 months, and then I'm going to take that and do this thing with it. So now it all becomes integrated into my playing schedule. And whenever I practice, I'm just basically playing music and practicing putting these elements together more and more smoothly and fluidly. If you're not doing stuff like that, nobody had to tell me what to practice or what I should be doing. I didn't have to go to the internet. I had like boxes of those Guitar for the Practicing Musicians. I have like probably at least 60 or 70 books on music and stuff. I have a whole, I don't even know if they work. I actually thought, I don't even think you can get a DVD player anymore to read them for the computer, these ripped music courses and stuff like that. which is kind of redundant. I'm sure that stuff's all on the cloud now. But my point being here is even though I had access to all this educational material, the fact of the matter is for me personally, the most sort of intelligent route to get from where I was to where I wanted to be was just to sit down and be like, how do I get there? Like, I've watched guys like Steve Morris, and I'm like, yeah, that's badass. Definitely want to play like him for sure. Like, who doesn't? But the thing is like, how do you get there? It's not like I can just step into Steve's shoes, because once you start playing, especially for a while, you're like, the tiniest little thing in your picking movement or your technique or your fretting and stuff can just have disastrous effects, and it can derail your musical idea, and you just you just soar off into left field, right? So, I mean, we've all been there, and that's just it. The musician quests for like this impossible ideal of perfection. It's like, we want to be perfect, and trust me, there are pianists out there that are so good, they're basically are perfect, but they're even in their own mind, they're like, nah. You know what I mean? Because they're chasing their own devil. I was thinking about it a while ago. I remember this really cool cartoon up here in Canada. I think it's based around a Quebecois myth where the devil gets in a canoe with all these Frenchmen, and they're paddling, and they have some sort of battle. I think I don't know. It's something weird like that. I can't remember. I went looking for it. It's like, got interested in that lost media. So I was like, I wonder if I could track that down. Because I thought it was under the Heritage Canada stuff, but I remember they deleted a whole bunch of that stuff because it exposed the fact that we were doing some pretty questionable medical procedures on people up here in Canada. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We were pioneers in that stuff because no rules. I trust the plan, boys. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was just, it was interesting. They're competing with themselves. There is no perfect ideal. That's how you know you're the musician. You just keep relentlessly pursuing that. And here's the thing, even though I hurt my finger, people are like, well, what? I'm still play music, man. I work on music, mixing it and stuff like that and organizing it. And other times, just to sort of work on new ideas with respect to chords, I'll work on the keyboard instead of playing the guitar. And here's the truth. Like, let's be real, man. Okay, so maybe the finger gets better. And then I play for like 3 days to try to be like, test out the waters, and it just gets hurt again. Then what? Right? Like, there's a possibility. I don't think it's real, but I mean, there's definitely a possibility that it could be game over. And then that situation, you have to sort of ask yourself, you'd be like, did you forsake like 30 or 40 years of your life? No, of course not, man. I'm so highly trained as a musician now, I don't even need the keyboard anymore. I can just do it right on the computer. And probably 90% of the time I do, because it's just a pain in the ass to go over there and turn it on. Connect it MIDI. It's faster just to write it in. You know what I mean? Done. Plus, you can just move them around in the register and all of a sudden actually get an appreciation for these chords and moving these tones and going from one chord to another chord. Like, there are incredible uses to having skills with a DAW and just a couple VST instruments, because you can actually sit there and sort of map it out. Again, musician type behavior. I remember I have this old tab program called Power Tab. I mean, it's like ancient, but you can still get it and you can still use it. And the thing is it gets the job done. And sure, I should be using Guitar Pro or whatever it is, but maybe later. But the thing is that inside that program, it has this whole dictionary of chords and stuff like that. And as lame as it sounds, I would just sit there and sort of mess around with the names and stuff and try to come up with different configurations and then see what they look like on the fretboard and then try to play some of them and stuff to be like, what does that sound like? You know what I mean? And then the other thing is like when you put a certain configuration of chords together, like notes, it would tell you what the chord was. And man, let me tell you, it would come up with like 10 or 15 different names for just one chord. That's not a joke. And I'm just like, wow. Now, obviously, there's one that's like G minor 11. That's probably the one you want, okay? In the context of what you're talking about. But instead of, B flat, sus 4, sharp 11. Whatever, who knows? You know what I mean? Like some nonsensical garbage that it just kind of spits out because it takes all of the prefixes and sort of jams it together. But still, ultimately, the fact is you can see it can start to equate in so many different ways. And that's what I mean about understanding this stuff in your own mind rather than sort of being like, here, teach me something. You have to sort of be like, okay, there's this thing called modes. There's 7 notes and there's 7 scales, and then just make that make sense. You're like the pentatonic scale, 5 notes, 5 scales. How's that work? Then the musician's like, he puts on a backing track and he tests out the theory. It's like a scientist with notes and arpeggios and chords. So you start off at the low level, but the first step has got to be like, yeah, maybe I should put a backing track on and then try these scales out. When I'm playing G major as the backing track, just that one thing vamped over and over and over again, just one chord. You start playing the pentatonic scale, you're like, okay, that sounds great. What happens when I do this? What other variations can I do? If you're thinking to be like, okay, look, I can move the entire scale system from the 1st degree to move it up to the 4th degree. That's a major chord. Why not do it there? I can do it at 5 too. What does it sound like there? And then all of a sudden, there it is. That's the difference. So if you're asking yourself if you're quitting music and stuff, if you're not asking these deeply probing questions about what you should be doing next and getting interested in sort of figuring it out and then developing effectively experiments, that's what a creative practice exercise is. It's a thought experiment using sounds. 1 + 1 = 2. G major over a G major chord is going to sound like they belong, however you want to term that. Right? That's our math. You're like, oh, I want to do something to this now. Oh, okay, we'll do this. And then we're like, yeah, do this over here in the music world. And it's up to you to figure that what this is based on what is interesting or what sounds good to you. That's why you have so many different types of guitar players. I saw 2 guys yesterday. What was it? I think it was Vince Gill and Albert Lee. I think that's who it was. He's like another country guru guy, but both absolutely ridiculous guitar players. Like, wow. Vince Gill particularly, holy smokes. That dude can play, man. Woo! But they're both amazing, but totally sound different. Even in the same music style. I mean, so far apart. When I heard Albert play against what he just did, I was just like, damn. I mean, it's like the polar opposite, but it's still country, I guess. His was more progressive, if you could even call it that, progressive country, because he broke a lot of rules and it didn't have that traditional country kind of sound, but Vince is like liquid metal. Just, it flows, you know what I mean? Just like glass. Perfect bends, control, the whole 9 yards. Like, damn, awesome. And that's just it. There's the musician aspect, somebody that just got so interested in it. It just attenuated his mind to this particular activity. Boom, just became amazing in this style of music. Sean Lane, another one. Saw some videos of him just, I think it was from Face Melters. Essentially him tearing it up. 5 solos. I mean, some of them were so ridiculous. I was just like, that's not even human anymore. That's insane. And here's the thing. It didn't come across as like overly pretentiously shreddy. It was just like, like, whoa, damn, man. Again, basically liquid fingers, just no limitation. just flows all over the fretboard, just at insano speeds, with like some of the juiciest lines too. You're just like, damn, that's a great combination of notes. And then he'll do like alternating combinations, and you're just like, yeah, okay, sure, why not? Just make it more impossible. So that's the thing. If you feel like you're like, oh, I think I'm kind of quitting or whatever it is, it's mostly because you've hit some sort of plateau, and you're just not you're not motivated enough anymore, you know, with respect to this particular activity, to really invest the time necessary to get through to no man's land to the next sort of like, you know, valley of plenty, where you can start again building up a head of steam and building some forward momentum with respect to how you play and how it sounds. And that's really what it comes down to. You make massive gains in the beginning for like the first 2 or 3 years, and you get pretty decent. But then the 3 to 5 year run, that can be pretty, right? That's tenuous, because basically you kind of stay at the 3 year mark. But if you put your head down and you work hard, you can get to the 5 year mark, and you're like, okay, I'm better now. And then there's the next dreaded one. That's about 5 to 10 years. Now, some people cut it down to like 7, maybe 8. But, you know what I mean? And that's where you mature as a musician, basically. And then after that, there's like this huge acceleration process. So it's sort of fast at the very beginning, and then it's like slows down, and then it really slows down. And if you really suck it up during the slow periods, and you just kind of figure out how to teach yourself, meaning you go on the internet, you know enough about music, you've done some basic investigations into theory and whatnot. You can break down the fretboard, the systems, 3 notes per string, caged, classical method, whatever it is, pentatonics, right? And you can watch a video. Oh, here's how diminished theory applies to pentatonic scales. That might be useful, right? So you're like, okay. And you assimilate that information and essentially start introducing it into your own playing. But of course, you may not be like, well, this one example 3 here in the video, that's a no for me, dog. Right? Like I don't see the value there. There's nothing wrong with that. But 2 and 5, those are killer. So I'm taking them immediately, and you just put it in there. And then later on, again, a musician trait is when you're like, where else can I use this? Like, I've got superimposition, so I can probably put it somewhere else. So that's when you know you're quitting. You're not doing stuff like that. Or you've already done what I guess the kids we call quiet quitting. You don't invest the effort into it anymore. And here's the thing, there's an even worse and more sort of devastating purgatory, which is when you invest all the money into the gear and you have 6 guitars and there's like $25,000 worth of stuff gathering dust in the corner of your basement. And you go down there once in a while and have a whammy fest or whatever it is, you know, going crazy, you know, playing the old tunes, maybe even going out with the boys and having a few jams. But, you know, it's basically over, right? It's just... if you were like, if I didn't do this anymore, I don't think I'd even notice that I missed it or anything like that. You know, like I'd love to play guitar, but I mean, obviously, this is a bit of a wake up call for me, but that's just it. You gotta, I have other outlets, so I don't go totally stir crazy. I have other ways of indulging myself musically and getting my fix without actually having to play the guitar. And that's another important point. You know, you got to be able to create music. That's the next sort of level of realization. It's not like the old days. Sure, you can play around the campfire and stuff, but trust me, eventually be like with the tools they have and stuff like that and how easy they're making it to actually make really good, high quality music. You don't have to know the stuff like we did in the old days. They have whole plugin suites now. One plugin that'll make an incredibly convincing master for like $100. You used to have to buy a compressor that cost $12,000 just to do the first stage compression on the master. You know, like now you can get it for $100. Mix it with a few other things. Talk about maybe a $500 investment. Boom, you can have some of the most killer sounding masters of all time. And there's literally hundreds of hours of lessons on the internet that you can watch for free. That's why the internet YouTube thing is kind of collapsing too. It's just there's not really much more to talk about that people haven't talked to death about. Sort of fragmenting into like these tribes and stuff like that to just sort of whatever sop up the last few dollars that while everybody goes broke, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty dark times, man. Like from what I'm seeing on the internet, even the people that are like fairly skilled and stuff like that are realizing that they're like, we're in really serious trouble here, man. I can't get ahead in any way, shape, or form, and I just exist to work. And I mean, that's another big one. How do you actually concentrate on any kind of hobby thing? When I was a kid, we had free time, summers off. You know what I mean? It was a different time, and we just kind of messed everything up. So I guess I just want to leave the video with, don't blame yourself. Not you. It's just, you know, you're just your mind is really telling you I don't really want to do this. You kind of want to do it. It's like getting into a relationship with a girl because you want to have sex, but really at the end of the day you just want to have sex. You don't really want the relationship part, or maybe vice versa, or some combination thereof. Doesn't matter. The point being here is that you're telling yourself you want one thing, but in reality, you don't. In a lot of ways, you're being held to this ball and chain because you're like, again, have all this gear that's an immediate reminder of all the time and effort you spent into it. And you're like, I don't want to abandon it. But at the same time, you're not really making use of the opportunity either. And that's sort of like, you know, that's a grown-up decision when you're like, all right, maybe I should just do something else. Or at least sit down and think about something else that you might be interested in. Start doing that. Be like, no, I think I actually do want to do music. You know what I mean? It's not the end of the road. But at the same time, you got to sort of have the heart to heart and be like, what am I really doing here? And if you're just happy being plateaued and you don't care anymore about learning new music or being a more skilled musician or whatever, absorbing new techniques or being like super shred god, good. Do it, man. I'm not telling anybody to take it as far as they don't want to, you know what I mean? Just fulfill your own goals, but remember the magic of music, I guess you could say, is this slow, steady increase in skill with your ability to actually put these sound combinations together to create really killer solos and music lines and songs and stuff like that that will really resonate with most people. And trust me, it'll become rare. Very rare. So, I mean, there's that. Especially the original stuff once they start smearing the internet with all this AI stuff. So, I mean, you do you, but the point being here is instead of being like, have I quit? Ask yourself, are you doing it for the right reasons? Because you actually love it, it interests you, you have like this deep burning sort of desire to know more about it, and you actively and proactively pursue things that will give you information that you can immediately implement onto the instrument and then start actually practicing them in real time. Oh, I got to get this harmonic minor scale in here. Let's do it. Today's the first day. I'm going to do the one that's relative to the minor pentatonic here. You know what I mean? And then you do it. You spend an hour basically running through the scale and playing some pentatonic ideas, and you put on a backing track and you do the scale and you run through the pentatonic ideas, right? Oh, pick a different one. See how that, oh, here's G major, so I'll do it when it's in G major. Okay, that doesn't sound so great. What happens when it's A minor? You know what I mean? Boom. Make up your own backing tracks if you don't have them. Get a looping pedal. That's what I'm talking about. If you're a musician, you'll just willingly spend the money on just getting the bare minimum necessary gear or just tracking it down on the internet for free, because honestly, most of the stuff you can get, it won't be the best in the world, but it'll get the job done, and that's all you really need. It doesn't have to be glamorous. We man, we came up in the age when everything sucked. It's like unbelievably amazing now. So trust me, what you're getting is pretty damn good comparably to what we had. So there it is. You know what I mean? And then if it's your time and stuff like that, then just, kind of put it in the case and hold on to it for a while. And if you found that you haven't played in a year or two, just maybe donate it to a musical lending library or something, or some sort of charity, or take it to the pawn shop, or sell it on Marketplace or Kijiji or whatever you do. Right. So that's my thing. And just kind of close the chapter out and then try to find something else to fill the void. Don't just be like, do nothing and watch TV. No, find something else to sort of now occupy your time, because that's obviously got to be an important part of your life. There has to be some sort of diversionary thing where you can just sit down and close out the rest of the world and engage in some sort of activity that just has you focus on being excellent in whatever capacity that is. And that's really what we're talking about here. If you chose music, or music chooses you, like in my case, music chose me, man. I like music and stuff like that, but I can't stop playing music. So there's not really a choice there. You know what I mean? I've tried before. I can't. I'm compelled. So there it is. And you have to decide for yourself, you know what I mean? And that's why I was like, I should diversify in case anything serious happened. What happened if you lost a hand or something? You know what I mean? That's why I started messing around with it on the computer. It was just a what if scenario for sure. But at the same time, I was like, it kind of makes sense to diversify. And that's just it. That actually led to a lot of big sort of ticket items being revealed to me, because I started to cross-pollinate across various instruments, with singing, with doing the keyboard stuff, playing the bass guitar, and then, of course, breaking it up now. So the bass guitar is its own part, and then, of course, the guitar is its own thing when I'm writing the music. Not just like, I'm playing a G major 6-string chord, I'm going to play the note G on the bass. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about building an entire chord progression based around the fact that the G is being held in the bass, and then I can do all these chords and some extra ones. We're going to look at that on Tuesday, so it's going to be a good time. Stick around for that one. Basically, don't be ashamed to sort of be like, it's not for me, even if you've invested a lot of time into it. But then, search your soul and be like, is this what I want to do? Because if you're just kind of doing it for all the wrong reasons, or you're just not really that into it, at the end, you'll just be incredibly disappointed, as I said at the beginning, because you wasted all this time when you could have been spending doing it on something that maybe you did like. And try to find another activity, whether it's physical, reading, or some other type of hobby, and make that the top priority, and then just dive in deep with that and apply all the same principles. I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you have a killer Sunday. Life carries on. Remember, just stay frosty. Don't let the world overwhelm you. Tomorrow's a new day. If it can't be fixed, or it's outside the scope of your control, just accept it to a certain degree and look for a solution over the long term. And last but not least, just breathe. Everything will be fine. Just take some time. Think about what it is you want and what you'd like to do. Then do it. See you in the next one.